We are now 3 weeks out from the launch of Midnight. There is a lot of discontent going around. The pre-patch launch was very rushed and riddled with bugs, but there has been a lot happening on beta recently. Now when pre-patch was released, it was released from a very early beta patch from the start of January. Any changes from January 12 onwards did not affect pre-patch, and there are a lot of fixes that didn't make it to pre-patch, including damage meter fixes, cooldown manager fixes, and a lot of class balance. They are releasing an update for pre-patch on this week's reset that will bring parity between beta and pre-patch versions, meaning almost everything I list in this video will be implemented into pre-patch very soon. The damage meter is reasonably functional now as a damage meter. Blizzard did deliver on most of the things they said they would deliver on. They added the death category. You can click on an entry in the death category to bring up a breakdown that looks kind of like the default death recap. It shows all the last damage instances you took. You can mouse over the left side of each instance and it shows you the time before death and the percent health you're on before the hit. It also has a symbol to denote instances of avoidable damage. They added the enemy damage taken category, which has an entry for every NPC type in a segment. You can click on an entry here to bring up the damage done and DPS for every player on that NPC. These two features are functional, but the interfaces are a bit annoying for people used to details. We are pending a details update, so we have to wait and see how add-ons can modify these panels. Also a nice change is that they enabled damage done and DPS to be in the same window with this new numbers option on the edit mode. They fixed the breakdowns with pests no longer being pushed to the bottom, and you can see percentages in the breakdown. They also added a combat timer to the window title. Overall, I think this is acceptable as a damage meter. Obviously it could be better and could have more, but I haven't really felt that I'm missing core functionality. Sometimes it is a bit bugged though. Now for the built-in boss timeline, they added a bar display, kind of like Bigwig's bars. You can choose through a drop-down whether you want a timeline or bars, and then you can change the size of these, move them around. They definitely work fine just out of the box, and they actually look pretty decent. The cooldown manager was very incomplete a month ago. Basic spells like Earth Elemental were not able to be tracked. Almost every spec had several missing cooldowns or buffs, but they've kind of fixed that. Most classes have a complete cooldown manager. Some classes are still missing small things, but it is a lot better. Blizzard have also loosened the restriction on friendly nameplates. Add-ons can now have colored friendly names in instances, which was not possible for a long time. Now the class balancing has been a bit controversial recently. Tuning has been coming in pretty slow. Only a few classes will get changed every week, and the changes they have made could be considered confusing. It is too uncertain to know anything about class balance in Raid, so I will only talk about what's good in M+ in this section. Currently, the spec considered to be the strongest is Arcane Mage. For a while, Sunfury Arcane was doing very good single targeting keys, but their AoE wasn't as good. And this week they nerfed Sunfury, but came out with a massive buff to Spellslinger, and now they are playing a no missiles build where all of their damage comes from Arcane Splinter and Arcane Orb, and they can just go into a 6 mob pool and do 1 mil DPS. And Frost Mage was very powerful up until this week where it got nerfed. It's still quite good, but not looking too OP. Current Mage discourse is around the class being quite defensively weak now, and also around every spec having a core ability that they do not cast. Demonology Warlock was looking super overpowered for the entire January. They did nerf it this week, but the nerf was only small and it is still looking extremely good. Unholy DK is also looking very strong. They play a disease build where they build up a long duration disease and then explode it, dealing its entire duration of damage at once. You can do some crazy bursts with this. Devourer Demon Hunter did get a buff that applied to both beta and pre-patch, and it is looking pretty good. The soul gen is a lot better and you get into your first meta a lot faster. They also fixed the friction behind cancelling Collapsing Star. So far, the best comps are considered to be a combination of these specs and also possibly Org, which is doing competitive damage now. Survival Hunter is still looking quite good. People are playing a pack leader build now where you dual wield. Marksmanship is also looking quite good, but BM Hunter got a very large and unexpected nerf recently. Some specs were previously looking good on beta, but were significantly nerfed, like Outlaw, Sub, Destro, and Shadow, which just got its 24th Psychic Link change up to a massive 60%. And the worst specs right now seem to be Ret, Havoc, Feral, and Boomy. They don't really do much damage. There are some specs that have flaws in their rotation. Windwalker is apparently not pressing Fists of Fury on single target. Fury Warrior's Thunderblast does less damage than the base Thunderclap, and also it is a DPS loss for them to take Enrage regeneration. And of course I will talk about Shaman. Enhance hasn't really got many changes, but they did get a massive healing surge buff, which then was counteracted with a massive healing surge nerf, which was quite sad. What is annoying about Enhance is that we haven't been able to play Totemic for a whole month, as Searing Totems are bugged to pull enemies that are not in combat. Ellie got no changes for about 2 months and then got a 5% nerf out of nowhere and then a further nerf to Stormbringer. Not sure what was up with that, not many people were playing Stormbringer anyways. For healers, Resto Druid has been nerfed, but it is still looking to be the strongest healer. There was a big controversy with a set of H-Power changes where they brought back Crusader Strike and massively nerfed the other abilities. There was a lot of pushback in the community against this, with even people who don't play H-Power acknowledging it, and Blizzard swiftly announced that they were reverting the change and buffing the spec instead. It is now looking like a contender, but likely still not as strong as Druid. The other healer specs look a bit weak in M+, both in damage and healing. Resto Shaman got a rework to their Ascendants to make Healing Wave cleave a second target, but they also removed Whispering Raves in the process, making AoE healing a struggle. Disc Priest has been continuously nerfed because of its prowess in raids. Holy Priest has been continuously buffed, and it actually is alright now. Mistweaver got an Ancient Teachings buff, but the spec is still quite bugged, and Prez is a bit of an unwieldy spec with strict positional requirements and a less straightforward healing kit. The current tank situation is surprisingly favouring Brewmaster, which is looking like the most durable tank, and it got buffed even further this week. VDH was recently bug fixed and nerfed, and it is falling out of favour for now. Protpal did receive some damage nerfs weeks ago and is considered to be a bit too squishy if you don't run Sentinel. And Guardian Druid is actually popping up now as a tank that is doing a lot of damage. Sims have only just started to come out, so hopefully in the next few weeks we will see how classes compare to each other on single target. Balancing does seem a bit all over the place right now though. The dungeons have had a lot of tuning changes, too many for me to go over. They did a lot of timer adjustments, so most of the dungeons have timers that aren't an even minute. For example, Algathar is now a 29:30 dungeon, which could be quite odd. And going off current logs, it seems the dungeons are somewhat balanced, with everything being done on 20 and one dungeon being done on 21 this week. Maybe a few bosses are too hard though, notably some in Skyreach. Now there is not much news on the raid. We had one more round of raid testing and it wasn't much. They retested the second and third boss of Voidspire and the Dreamrift boss, and honestly the biggest changes were just animations. The fight still played the same with a few minorly tweaked mechanics. Because this was the third time testing these bosses, not many guilds participated in this testing, so there wasn't much conclusive data on spec balance provided from this. Now I don't have much to report on in terms of system or loot changes. The M+ Vault thing from 2 months ago that was silently put in was then silently taken out, so the max revolt reward is again coming from +10s. Blizzard have not said a word on anything regarding Crest still. Potions are still incredibly powerful, giving you 70% more main stat while active. They haven't really done any trinket tuning either. They did add a second socket to the very rare haste ring that drops off the end boss, making it the only Drooly Priest in the expansion to have 2 sockets. Now the question again is, will the game be ready for midnight release in 3 weeks? And I honestly think it will. Prepatch was terrible, but beta does fix a lot of the issues that stemmed from Prepatch. Hopefully the update to Prepatch that is coming tomorrow is actually functional and doesn't break everything again. From my time playing beta this week, I don't feel like this is a grossly incomplete game or anything. I feel like if a few bugs get ironed out and some more tuning patches come out, the game could be in a good state.